I'll say this, and I'll say it publicly. If there's anything I can ever do for you, I hope you'll contact me. But again, thank you for what you've done. Thank you for being in the service today. Thank you for being here to worship. And a little bit later, we'll greet each other and welcome each other. We're glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And I have got a couple more announcements I wanted to make. Like he said, it's just that time of year. We've got tons of fun stuff going on, and we want to make sure that you know all of these wonderful opportunities to participate and just have a wonderful time as the fellowship of this church. But I mentioned this last week. We have super fun event coming up the first Wednesday night in December. We've got our church-wide Christmas party. So we always have a yummy meal downstairs in the fellowship hall, and then we try to do something fun, something really family-minded. Last year we had a beautiful Christmas concert here in the sanctuary. This year we're going back to the super fun and silly route. We're going to do a lip sync contest. So, and I've had people ask me, this is for groups in our church. So any group that you meet with, if your group, your Sunday school class, anything like that, get together and do a song, it has to be a song from the 50s or from the 60s. And you got to claim your song quick, because once a class or a group claims the song, that one's off the list. So get your song to Monk Blevins. He's got the master list going. But I've had people ask me, can you be in more than one? And the answer is yes, because our church staff, we are planning something big, and we have stolen some people from some classes. But people that we have stolen, you can still be in your Sunday school class talent or skit. You can be in other groups. That'll be fine. So if you'll please let Monk know your song. If you need help getting a CD of that song so that y'all can practice with it or anything like that, let me know. Let me know who sings it, title of the song, and I will get on the hunt, and I'll find a copy for you and get that to you. We need to have your song and your CD of it by the last Sunday of this month, because we're going to put them all on one master CD so that on that night we can just go from one song to the next. So please plan to be there that night. Plan to participate that night. It's just going to be a lot of fun. Also for our choir, and for our band and our AVL team, anyone who is participating in our Christmas musical is going to be here soon. We have got a practice tonight here in the sanctuary from 7 to 8. So if you're a part of that practice, please try to be here tonight. And I believe that is all the announcements that we have. I hope that you have come ready to sing praises to God. Will you please stand and join us? Thank you so much for choosing to come and be with us here at Broadway this morning. Like Jeff said, it is cold outside. I know it is. And sometimes that can be discouraging when you wake up and you think, I'm just going to stay home today. I'm so glad that all of you chose, no, I'm going to get out, I'm going to be about, and I'm going to come to God's place of worship here at Broadway. So thank you for coming. If you are a visitor, we're honored to have you here. Hope you're going to come be at another service here with us again. In a little bit, we're going to have a time of fellowship. But for right now, you may be seated. We are going to do a song for our choir special today that I bet all of you know. So we would love for this whole sanctuary just to be one big choir. This is a song that we had requested, Just a Little Talk with Jesus. You sing it along with us. I love that song and I love that bass line. That is just fabulous. I'm going to ask our choir to be seated. Today is Veterans Day, and we are so thankful for all of our veterans. So if I could please ask everyone to pay attention to our screens.
The 11th hour does not strike on the clock of every man. For at this time, most of us can be found at home, comfortable, knowing tomorrow is right on its way. At the 11th hour, most of us can be found in our beds. But in another world, our men and our women, our brothers and our sisters live in this hour. Tick, 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 tick. Every second for you, every second for me. So it was on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. The guns were lowered. The trenches grew silent, and an armistice was declared between the Allied nations and Germany. The Great War hushed so that the wives, the children, the fathers and the mothers could salute back across the ocean. And it is on this day each year that we have stopped to salute our veterans, our men and women of the 11th hour. So today, it's our turn. It's our turn to show our gratitude. It's our turn to applaud when they stand. It's our turn to thank God for you. Yes, it's our turn to say thank you for going in our stay.
We as a church want to thank our veterans so very much for your service, for everything that you have done for us. So if we have any of our veterans that are here present today, would you please stand? Church, let's honor them. Church, I hope that we looked around and saw who was standing. And anytime today, if you would, please go up to them and let's personally thank them as well, because they have sacrificed a lot for us, and we can never thank them enough. I thought this song was just totally fitting for today, so we're going to sing Here I Am, Lord. Would you please stand?
My hand will stay.
carols singing. We are now going to have a time of fellowship, but it is that time of year, and I've been asked to remind people of this. Sickness has started. So if you go in for a hug and somebody gives you a fist bump or an elbow bump, whatever they want to do, that's all right. Don't take it personally. We're there just trying not to catch germs. So please welcome each other to our service. Say hello. During this time, the choir will come down and our ushers will come forward.
As you're making your way back, let me point out a few things about the band up here. It's just a fruit basket turnover up here. I looked at the drummer and I thought, that kind of looks like Jay, but that's not Jay. And then Fred's over there playing the bass, and we just got all kind of things going on. Brother Kevin mentioned something a couple of weeks ago. He said, it's amazing, and I counted today, 27. How many times somebody asked me how I was doing? And what do we always say? We say, oh, I'm doing fine. If my dad almost came this morning, and if he'd have been here and y'all have said, how you doing, LB? He'd have said, I'm doing fine. Let's bow. Lord, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for our veterans. And we hope we can just show them how much we do appreciate them and all that they did for our country, that they did for us. And so help us to always be mindful to show them how much we appreciate what they did for us. And so we take this day, and we took a few minutes a minute ago just to try to, in some way, show them our thanks. And now we ask you to be with us as we give back a portion that you ask us to give, and just be with an offering. And we'll be careful to give you the glory for everything. Amen.
Good morning. I just want to personally say thank you to all the veterans for what you have done and still do from my family. So I just pray you're blessed by this song this morning. A certain time, a certain place, I vision in my mind the life I left behind. I get emotional to know you called my name. I feel unworthy, your gentle mercy. Sometimes the rain will fall, questions flood my soul. Have I been forgiven, or has my heart turned cold? Under the blood, yesterday is a memory. I'm lost from the ways of death. Your love has covered me. I've found perfect peace. It took so long to get to where I should. I'm over the guilt and the shame, 'cause I'm under the blood. A perfect plan so long ago still echoes from a hill. Whosoever will, just let him come today and bring his broken dreams. I know you'll be amazed at his loving grace. You'll find in Jesus Christ everything you need. And when the past seems present, it's in the sea of forgetfulness. Under the blood, yesterday is a memory. I'm over the guilt and the shame, 'cause I'm under the blood.
Well, how about that? There you go. Good morning. Good to see each and every one of you. Those of you who may be visiting with us today, we are so delighted to have you with us. It's been a hard week for Broadway Baptist Church. This week we lost Lane Burleson, and we need to continue to pray for Roger and Juliet as they recover from that loss. Also lost Susan Butler. Not sure how many of you all would know Susan. She sat over here in our contemporary service for a good long while. It's been a while since she has been with us, but we certainly need to pray for her two girls, Emily and Hannah. And you would know Hannah if you saw her. Eric Lawman, yes, y'all do know. So thank you so much for praying for them. The funeral for Susan will be tomorrow, so pray especially for them. Well, on October the 28th, you had a Pastor Appreciation Day, and I certainly want to thank you, each and every one of you, for the cards, the thoughts, generosity. I seem to be going up and down with my volume. Am I on this one now? Is this one not working? Huh. So how are y'all? I'm trying to remember exactly what all I was saying. I truly, truly love this church. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you for all that you do. Well, October 28th was not just Pastor Appreciation Day, but it was a great, great day, and that we brought everybody together and had one big celebration. Wasn't that a tremendous service? Well, y'all fooled me. I thought y'all enjoyed it a whole lot more than that. Wasn't that a great service? Yeah. I tell you what, it was a great day. We had 373 people that were here in this room, and it was full. And I need to tell you, not only were you excited about that day, but God was excited about that day. I want you to look on your listening guide and find verse number 21. I'm sorry, verse number 20. Yeah, verse number 21 in the passage that comes to us from Luke's Gospel, Luke chapter 14, down in verse number 21. The servant came back to the master, and he reported to his master that then the owner of the house became angry. Now, what you find in these verses from chapter 16 down to where we are is the master has thrown this tremendous banquet, and he's invited all kinds of people to come. But as the day of the banquet arrives, everybody begins making excuses as to why they can't get there. And so the master just sends them out, look, go and bring people in. And that's exactly what they've done. They've gone out there and told everybody the invitation, that had the invitation, it's time to come. And they didn't come. They just made these excuses. And verse number 21 tells us that the owner of the house became angry. All these people I've invited, all of these people that were going to come, I've made all these preparations, and now they don't want to show up. So the master is angry. And he ordered his servants to go back out quickly into the streets and the alleys and the towns and bring the poor, the crippled, the lame, and anybody you can find. In verse 22, the master says, the servant says to the master, we've done what you ordered, but there's still room. And then the master says, look, you go out and go to the roads, the country lanes, and make people come to my house so that my house can be full. There's something exciting about having a full house. And when you get excited about having a full house, I see just a little bit of the image of God in every single one of you. The Bible's clear. Every one of us was created in the image of God. And when you get excited about the same things that excite God, I see God's thumbprint upon your life. When we bring a big crowd together like we had on October the 28th, I mean, this place just begins to beam with excitement. And from my perspective, one of the things that I get so excited about is your excitement, because I really began to see, oh, you're so much like your master in heaven. He gets so excited when this house is full. I want you to notice, if you would, that what he does is tells us he wants his house full. Now, be careful to notice, he's not just talking about a big crowd. He doesn't just want a big crowd. He wants his house full. In verse number 22, the servants come back and says, look, we've got everybody we could, but there's still room. And he says, well, look, go back out there. Look in those country lanes. Look everywhere you can look and just compel people, make people, do whatever you need to do to get people to come, because I want my house full. So he sends them back out to the roads, the country lanes, just so his house could be full. Do you have any idea where all these streets, alleys of the towns, the roads, the country lanes, do you know where these things are? They're where you go every single day of your life. Wherever you go. As somebody said, wherever you go, there you are. Well, wherever you go, you are on one of those country lanes. You're on one of those alleys in the town. You are somewhere where God can use you to reach the people around you. Folks, God wants to use you so that he can enjoy the very same thing that you enjoyed on October the 28th. A full house is very exciting. I saw that excitement on your face on October the 28th. I still remember several years ago when Dee Ford was living, we had a friend day, and Dee Ford, her husband pastored churches all over. He pastored this church for many, many years, and many of you, I can mention the name Nolan Ford and a smile just comes across your face. Now, can you imagine being married to that man? She was the more positive of the two. She had a way of every time Brother Ford would get started down one of his stories he'd tell, she'd just sit there. Those of you that are laughing, you remember Brother Ford. But I remember that friend day over in the other building. We had met for worship, and we hadn't even got the service started yet, and I happened to walk past her, and she grabbed my arm, and she said, oh, I've just got to tell you, this is one of the most exciting days that I ever remember in church. And it was like, are you kidding me? You've been married to Brother Ford, and this is the most exciting day you've ever experienced? There's just something exciting about coming to a full house to worship our God. And folks, you can fill this house up. Do you remember why we had that one celebration where all of our services came together? It was because you had went out and you brought people into Sunday school. I had told you, look, if we can get 300 in Sunday school, we'll have a worship service where we all can come together. You can do this. October the 28th took place because you were busy out there in all of these various places where your life carries you. Individually, we can't do everything, but together, we can do anything. You can do this. And Jesus tells us exactly how to go about doing this so that we can experience that joy on an ongoing basis. Look once again at what he says. Go out into those country lanes, verse 1 and 22 and 23. Go back out there in those country lanes. Wherever your life takes you, go and you can bring them in. But we kind of like shortcuts, don't we? Hey, we got another crowd that meets at 11 o'clock. Why don't we just get together with them? Work's done. I mean, it's a full house. Work is done. Folks, it's not just bringing together a crowd. It's about doing things the way God would have things done. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Let's say you've got to have surgery, and your surgeon says, it's not the way the surgery is done, but I know a shortcut, and I think it might work. Would you want a guy like that doing surgery on you? Now, I know we want the easiest surgery we can get. We don't want to get into this massive stuff. But do you really want your surgeon taking shortcuts? Or let me hit where most of you live. Let's say you're eating out, and the person preparing your food takes a shortcut. I personally experienced this. I was eating in a restaurant one time, and everything on my plate was hot. It was good, except the piece of meat I ordered. And it still had little giblets of ice right in the very center of it. It had been frozen before, and they simply didn't get it hot enough to sort of heat the whole thing up. It was about 2 or 3 years before I could order that dish again in that particular restaurant. It really had an effect upon me. While it's a whole lot easier to take shortcuts, hey, let's just get that other group and bring them back together. That's not at all what God wants us to do. He wants us out there in the life that we live to be busy about sharing with other people what Christ has done for us. And as we share with them, bring them into the life of our church. One day, Randy Tumlin was sitting out behind the old building and had this long trailer. And I had seen him pull that thing around on his tractor and pulling it behind his truck. And he and I were sitting out there talking, and I said, Randy, what is this thing? He said, it's a hay hauler. And I looked at it and I thought, how do you haul hay on this thing? And he started telling me, and it took a few minutes for me to understand exactly how this thing works. Now, I don't know that he does this, but let's imagine that somebody up in Henniger wanted him to pick up 4 or 5 big rolls of hay and haul that hay over to Section. And he comes by the office, and I say, hey, Randy, what you doing? Well, I'm fixing to go up to Henniger and get a couple of rolls of hay and carry it to a fellow over in Section. And I said to Randy, there's a shortcut from here to Section. You just go up here to the red light and you turn, it'll carry you right to Section, Alabama. That's a shortcut. It'll get you there. But that wasn't his purpose of going to Section, just to see how quickly he could get there. Somebody had asked him to go up there and get some hay and carry that hay to Section. Folks, God gets excited seeing his house full. But he gets excited when we do things that he's asked us to do. It's not just to fill this building up with people we already have. It's to go out there in the lanes, in the roads, in the places where we live, in the places where our life takes place. And all of those people that we know that do not have a relationship with God or are far from God, God wants us to bring them in so that they too can experience the excitement that we have when all of us get together in the house of God. It is true, well, first of all, God's will for my life is better than my life, better than my will for my life. Would you agree with that? Let me say that again where you get what I'm saying. God's will for my life is far better than my will for my life. I've seen people who've tried to live life by their own will, and boy, they really can get in a mess. And I'm one of us. I can remember times that I have got into trouble trying to do my will rather than trying to do God's will. God's way of living my life is far better than my way of living my life. Some of you personally know individuals who have ruined their life or in the process of ruining their life, trying to live life by their own way. Folks, if that's true for an individual, think of how much more true it is for a church. God's will for our church, way better than our will for our church. Do you agree? God's way of doing church, far better than our way of doing church. God says, here's the way I want you to fill my house. Go quickly into the streets, the alleys of the town. Bring in those that you find out there, the crippled, the blind, the poor, the lame. Go bring them in. Verse 23, go out into the roads, the country lanes. Make them come in so that my house will be full. No place in particular. Jesus says it differently in Matthew 28. He simply says, look, as you go out into the world, make disciples of everybody that you see. That's what he's saying. Go out there, compel people. Hey, y'all come be with us. Let me tell you about this Jesus. Let me tell you what he has done for me. Well, this morning as we kind of come to the close of our service here in just a few minutes, I have an unusual invitation. Now, we have some people that are going to make decisions this morning to unite with our church, so we will have a regular invitation. But as we close out our invitation, there'll be some folks down here at the front, and you'll need to come by and greet them and welcome them into the life of our church. But some of you, and I realize not everybody's going to want to do this, but some of you, I'm going to ask you to pray again over these shoe boxes. I know what you're thinking. Didn't we do that last week? I prayed over my shoe box when I packed it. Ain't I done? Well, you may be, and that's fine. But I want to ask you a couple of questions about these shoe boxes, and I want you to think about it. On Saturday, a week ago yesterday, we had our first Saturday prayer meeting, and while I was praying, it was like God just really began to speak to me, and I wrote out a good portion of this message during that prayer time as the Lord was speaking to my heart. The question I want to ask you is, how many of you packed a shoebox last week, and while you were packing, you thought, wow, look at this stuff. I know what I'm going to get my kid for Christmas this year. How many of you packed a shoebox and thought, wow, this is what I'm going to get my grandkids this year, or a niece, or a nephew, or a friend? I don't want to be unkind about anybody that works with Samaritan's Purse. I don't want to be unkind in any way to anybody that works with Operation Christmas Child. I know there's regulations they have to live by. They can only do so much for children around the world. We don't pack these stuff without knowledge of what they will allow to be sent around the world. We don't put knives, we don't put anything sharp in these objects. Sharp objects in these boxes. There are particular guidelines that you have to go by. And I realize that many of you will get stuff for your kids that these shoeboxes simply wouldn't hold. Some of you will get stuff for your grandkids these shoeboxes will not hold. So I don't mean anything unkind when I use this word, but the only thing I could think of last week while we were packing these shoeboxes is trinkets. These really are trinkets compared to what we will buy our children, our grandchildren, and our friends. This is nowhere near what we enjoy here in the United States of America. Now, I don't say that unkindly, but the more I think about the packing of these shoeboxes, the more I really want to tell you a story, and then I want you to really, really pray. I'm not, actually, for all this week, I've thought about, now, how can I word this prayer so that you can pray this prayer over these boxes? And the more I fooled with the prayer, the longer it got, and so I realized nobody's going to pray a prayer that long over these boxes. So what I want to do is tell you a story and then let God lead you in how you will pray over these boxes. Now, once again, I know some of you have already prayed over these boxes and I just ain't going to do it again. That's fine. That's fine. It's almost like God knew that when he put this story on my heart. But anyway, let me dive into the story. Look there on your listening guide, Judges chapter 7. I'm going to read just very quickly, and there's 3 words I want you to hang on to. Matter of fact, let me give you the 3 words before we go. Everybody say these 3 words. Number 1, trumpet, jars, torches. That's what they went to battle with. As I was packing my shoebox last Sunday, and actually the Lord had already spoke to me about it the Saturday before, I got a 2-year-old girl, went to the 2 to 4-year-old girls. Anybody know why? Okay. And I was just thinking, now what is my wife going to get little Eloise for Christmas? And by the way, this is her first Christmas. She won't even know it's Christmas. And yet I know my wife has got all this stuff she's planning on. As a matter of fact, she's already started. I was out turning wood the other day, and she come out there bothering me. Let me show you what I got Eloise. Little Christmas ornaments. And I thought, all right, here we go. Gideon is getting ready to go to battle, and all he carries with him is trumpets, jars, and torches. That's all he's got. And he's facing, look there at Judges chapter 6, verse number 3. Israel planted their crops, and the Midianites, the Amalekites, and eastern people invaded the country. There's a verse right after this, and I noticed that I did not put it on your listening guide, but there's a verse right after this that said there were so many of them they looked like locusts. You couldn't even begin to count the number of camels that they have, much less all of the people. And Gideon is about to go to war with trumpets, jars, and torches. Just mere trinkets of war. There's no way that a man in his right mind would even begin to do that. But look there at Judges chapter 6, verse number 16. Well, verse 15. But Lord, Gideon asked, how can I save Israel? My clan, it's the weakest in Manasseh, and I'm the least in my family. Not only was he going to war with just mere trinkets, But those carrying the trinkets are following a man that is the least of the least. Folks, when I think of Broadway Baptist Church, you know, if you take one of those Google Maps and blow it up real big, you can see Broadway Baptist Church. Did y'all know that? Matter of fact, on my cell phone, I've got a picture Broadway Baptist Church right there on my cell phone, looking down from a satellite way up there in the sky. You can see it. I mean, you look on Google Maps, get it up big enough, you can see it. But if you get a map big enough you can see all of Rainsville, you don't see Broadway Baptist Church anymore. And if you get that map small enough you can see all of Fort Payne to Scottsboro, you can see the name Rainsville, but you really don't see Rainsville. And then if you look at a state map, Rainsville don't even show up on a lot of those little Google state maps. You have to really pull in close. And when you look at the United States, they don't even hardly show Alabama. It's just one of those places. Then when you begin to look at the globe, we're just a tiny little speck. Boxes full of trinkets from a place, when you look at the globe, it's very, very small. But what God can do with trinkets when God is there. Look at what he says in verse number 16. Gideon says, look, I'm the least of the least. I come from the smallest of the small. And the Lord says back to Gideon, I'll be with you, Gideon. I'm with you. Boy, I tell you, when you read the Bible, those words, they change the playing field. I'm with you. I'm with you. This is going to be okay. Our weapons are not weapons that we normally think that we fight with. Today is Veterans Day, and veterans, we do honor you. We appreciate so much all that you have done for our nation. But I need to tell you that now you're in the Lord's army. And what weapons the Lord gives you, it's so different than the weapons you were trained to fight with. And I'm so amazed at some of you and the weapons that you fought with. Some of you that are older, you have no idea the stuff I was trained on when I was in the Navy. And when I talk to guys in the Navy now, I can't even begin to conceive stuff they're working on, things that they do to keep us safe. I'm so grateful for veterans, but I need to tell every single one of you, you're in the Lord's army now. And the battle we're fighting is so different. It's very much like the battle that Gideon fought. Look on the very bottom of your listening guide, 2 Corinthians chapter 10. The Apostle Paul says, for though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. And the weapons we fight with are not the weapons of this world. This morning, I'm going to ask you to pray that these trinkets in these boxes become weapons of war. Not so kids can fight and all that kind of stuff, but so that God, just as he won this battle with Gideon, can win the battle in the hearts and in the families of kids all over this world. Folks, I noticed, I put a coloring book in my box, and I just thought, how many kids never even seen a coloring book? And when they open that box, their life will be thrilled. And I pray that God will use that to bring victory in the life of a child, victory in the life of a family, victory in the life of a village, victory in the life of a town, victory in the life, and just see that victory begin to spread and spread and spread. The weapons we use are not weapons of the world. On the contrary, Paul says, they have divine power. You know how Gideon can win a battle with torches and jars and trumpets? Because the Lord said, I'll be with you. I'll be with you. That's exactly what took place. The Lord was with him. Many of us have no idea of what kind of strongholds some of the kids around this world face. But God can break those strongholds. You believe that? Come on now. Do you believe that? I'm going to ask you to pray in a minute. And I need to know you're going to pray believing that God's going to use these shoeboxes in ways we can never imagine. I was over in Atlanta. I guess it's been probably 10 years ago. And they were talking about these Operation Christmas Child shoeboxes. And they brought a young man up there that was finishing his last year in seminary at some seminary up north. And his call into ministry, his walk with Christ began through a simple little shoebox. Somebody put their address in there and he wrote them back, and it started a pen pal relationship. And they've kept up with him. And when he moved to the United States, he's getting some theological training, they actually met up with one another and a friendship was born. And it's just wonderful to hear the stories that come out from these shoeboxes. Verse number 5, we demolish arguments and every kind of pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. Now I know some of you are going to say, well, wait a minute. I prayed over these shoeboxes and I prayed believing, and I'm just not sure I want to pray again. Judges chapter 7, verse number 2. The Lord said to Gideon, well, Gideon, you got too many men for me to deliver Midian into your hands, in order that Israel may not boast against me that their own strength has saved her. Announce to the people, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave. And so 22,000 men left, and only 10,000 remain. Now, I've thought about this, and by the way, I'm not even trying to insinuate that those of you that don't want to pray over these boxes are wimps. That's not what I'm saying at all. You've packed shoeboxes, and I'm grateful for what you've done. You've prayed over shoeboxes, and I'm grateful for what you've done. I am going to ask you to come by and greet our new members here in just a few minutes. But those of you that will, I'm going to ask you, just in the spirit, because of what God did through Gideon, just take a moment and pray over these shoeboxes and say, God, I believe what you did there with them shoeboxes. I mean, I believe what you did in the life of Gideon with just old trumpets and jars and torches. I believe you can do that with a simple shoebox. And I'm praying. I don't know if you want to pray in the spirit of Gideon or praying as Gideon or how you want to pray that prayer. But I believe God can do tremendous things through these shoeboxes that to us are just trinkets. But in the hands of God, they can change the world.